My show is about $2.50, again, with the promo code HELL. If you don't think this is a good deal, you to give me your address. I will sit down, old school, subprime mortgage style, in your kitchen and explain to you why it's a good deal. One of the many reasons that I will be spending my eternity in the netherworld was I did and loved selling subprime mortgages. They were really a big part of my life for about 5 years when I was a young impressionable man out there selling mortgages on Long Island, which is the work I believe Jesus Christ would do and will do when he returns. I believe he will have a shop. It was, what we called it. And I believe that Jesus would come back and be selling subprime mortgages. But if you don't think it's a good deal, you don't want to subscribe, I'll come to your house, just like mortgages, and I'll sit down with you and I'll explain to you why this is a good investment. That's what I did, and everything ended up being fine.
You're a mortgage broker in Long Island. I meet you in a diner, which is you call your office.
The Imperial Diner in Freeport, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, you go.
We got to make it real.
Yeah.
So it's the Imperial Diner in Freeport on Merrick Road.
Yeah, you say meet me at the office, and I hear you hang up.
We'll spill hot coffee on you by mistake and look at you and go.
Yeah. And when you tell me to meet you at your office, I hear the clang of a payphone when you hang up.
Yeah.
And so I meet you at your office. I come in. I say, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you, Mr. Dillon. Me and my wife just got married. I'm a comedian. I saved up about $80K. She wants to live. We're having a baby. She wants to live on the island.
Mr. Pop, I'm very glad.
Can I get a loan?
Not only can you get a loan, but let me tell you something.
Yeah.
How much of that $80K are you prepared to spend on the property?
I don't know, Mr. Dillon. I'm a pretty conservative guy. I saved every single dollar from my more recent shows.
How much are you prepared to spend?
Hold on, let me go into Maurice's brain.
No. Of that $80,000, how much would you like to spend? Are you willing to spend all of it?
I'm willing to spend about 60 or 70 of it.
Mr. Pappas, guess how much of that 80 you're gonna have to spend?
How much?
Nothing.
What?
Nothing. You're not gonna spend anything because let me explain something to you. Sit down. The wife is lovely. Would you like a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Yeah. Can
Mr.
I get
Pappas.
Can I get pancakes while I'm here?
Yeah, you can get anything. The bricks and sticks of your house.
Yeah.
Appreciate.
Uh-huh.
The frame, the land.
Uh-huh.
They appreciate and value. You know what your money does in your house for you, Mr. Pappas? It does absolutely nothing. Right. You know what the wealthiest people do with real estate, Mr. Pappas? A lot of them finance it. Why? Because your mortgage is your only tax write-off. It is the only write-off. It is your only fucking weapon against the federal government. The larger the loan you take, the better it is for you financially. And you take that $80,000 and I'm not wrong, by the way, and you put, well, I'm a little, and you put it in tax-exempt securities like Roth IRAs. Mr. Pappas, you maximize the amount of tax-exempt retirement accounts that you put your money in with that $80,000. You make it work for you. You do not sink it into a house. Yes or yes? So the reality is this. We're taking the biggest loan possible. That, Mr. Pappas, will set you free. Now sign this piece of paper for Christ. And at that point, you and your wife are crying.
Yeah.
And then we sign papers, then you go die.
But how do you get the loan from the bank? They're giving them away.
What are we doing? We're talking about now or back in the day?
No, back in the day.
Yeah, how
Back
did
in
you
the
do
day,
it?
I go to the bank. I said, Kelly, we got one. And Kelly, I said, Mr. Pappas and his wife Brittany's from Long Island. They want to go buy a piece of marble hunk of shit. And Kelly has got Coke running down her nose from last night. She's got a fucking double tall non-fat latte from Starbucks non-fat. She's not kidding anyone. And she nails it down and she says, she makes all the paperwork look like it should look. And then my little shitty bank, which was called Franklin First or New World Mortgage or the Mortgage Zone or the Funding Hut or whatever it is, we send our paper to a fucking even bigger and as similarly shitty bank like a Long Beach Mortgage or a New Century Mortgage or an Argent. And those banks were doing backdoor deals with JP Morgan, Citigroup. So those banks were underwriting the paper to the middle grade banks that were lending money to the dirtbag brokerage operating out of a van places that I worked. Okay?
Right.
So when this all, you ever played a game of hot potato?
Yeah, it's an orgy, yeah.
So when everything goes wrong,
You pass it around.
We're passing it around.
Yeah.
And then by the time you sign your mortgage, by the time you get your first bill, because the other benefit, Mr. Pop, is you don't pay for 2 months.
Right.
For 2 months, you don't pay.
But are you sure I'm going to be able to afford this mortgage? My stand-up comedy career is up and down.
Mr. Pappas, I have watched your stuff. I think you're a genius.
Thank you.
And I think you're an absolute genius. And I will tell you this right now. All you have to worry about right now, what are you going to do with those?
I'm just a little worried. I'm not past the cellar. Am I going to have a future?
You're going to have a cellar in the home that we put you in. All you have to worry about, Mr. Pop, is what are you going to do with those 2 free months? Because we're rolling it into the mortgage. You've got 60 days. I would take a little vacation with this lovely lady.
Are you serious?
2
Because I was concerned I even had enough for the mortgage before this.
2 free months.
What?
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
you're saying free. Am I going to have to pay at some point for this down the line?
We're rolling it into the mortgage, which, again, we talked about. It just increases your tax deduction. If you could, Mr. Pappas, you'd take a loan every day.
Honey, do you I mean,
Every day you would take a loan because the federal government is coming to take your hard-earned money. I am telling you, your ability to fight them is contingent on how big this mortgage is. Take all your credit card debt, all your car loans, everything, student loans, roll it into this, refinance it. Let's take $100,000, $200,000. Let's do it. Let's make it big. And let's do it once and do it right. That's a great line. That's a line one of our guys had. Let's do it once and do it right. And then he'd call them back 8 months later, and they'd go, you said we were going to do it once and do it right. He goes, let's do it twice and do it better. But that's what we need. That's the only way the economy's get. Like, you guys can laugh at that. That's the only way the economy is going to get.
On a bubble. On a
Retards
you need criminals back.
have to sell things to other retards.
You know, and I got together with a bunch of friends recently for a barbecue that used to work in the mortgage industry with me, and you know, we were talking about that. We were talking about what the next thing would be, and you know, when we were all going through it, nobody could really appreciate how huge it was going to blow up. Nobody knew. People thought there was.
Were any of them indicted?
No, nobody was indicted. You know, we were selling legal products. All these loans were legal.
All right.
This was all legal. And many of us were young people. We didn't really question it too much because this was the products. This was being sold. And people were making fortunes. One of the big companies we were talking about was a company called Countrywide. And Countrywide seemed to symbolize a financial crisis more than any other. And in the history of cons, you know, Countrywide is one of the biggest and most famous of them. And I think it was mentioned in The Big Short. If not...
in the book at least. Yeah.
In the book, it certainly was. And we have a great commercial. And I'm going to set up this commercial. Well, the reason why I love it is because the woman in the commercial, clearly, when she's talking, and it's only 30 seconds, but she identifies 3 people who never should have gotten loans and then says how Countrywide approved them for mortgages. And it's one of my favorite things ever. And back then, you thought nothing of it. But now, with the knowledge you have, you kind of look back and you're like, oh, this is crazy. It's Clintonian is what it is. But let's take a look at this commercial. I absolutely love this commercial.
A growing family with a lot of debt. A young couple with no down payment. A business owner whose income was hard to document. Every one of them was turned down for a home loan by 3 different lenders. I'm with Countrywide, and I got them all approved. So if you need a lender who actually finds ways to make loans, call Countrywide. We're America's #1 home loan lender.
Isn't that great?
Wasn't
No
the
one can
entire
go to
problem?
Countrywide.
A growing family with a lot of debt. A veteran who set himself on fire in the kitchen. A man and woman who spend most of their days smoking opium. All of them were denied from traditional lenders. I work at Countrywide. We made their W-2s on a program on my computer, and they're all lived happily ever after.
And we don't care because we're going to sell that debt to the U.S. government.
Yeah, but like the examples couldn't have been more egregious. Like a growing family with a lot of debt. They have kids every 9 months. They don't even know which end is up. They don't know how they're paying their bills. A young couple with no down payment. They've saved no money. Their parents will lend them nothing. We got them all approved.
Now, that was from in the midst of the bubble, or was that
That was
recent?
in the midst of the bubble.
Okay,
That was in the midst of the bubble.
Yeah, that's not coming out now.
A self-employed business owner whose income is hard to document or prove even exists.
Like, how do you even
Great. I love it. And at the end of the day, all the logic now seems incredibly fallacious, and it is. But for a while there, it was, it was exactly what she said.
How was your cut?
A
in the
drug
no-doc?
dealer who couldn't document his income.
Now, when you got a no-doc loan, how was your cut better or worse?
What do you mean?
If you were doing a no-doc loan,
Your interest rate was higher.
so you were making more money.
I was making more money. The rate was higher. The bank was making more money.
So you ever push a no-doc on someone who had documentation?
No, I mean people. You had the docs. You had the docs. At the end of the day, it was risk-based pricing.
Okay.
So the risk.
But you never,
the more expensive.
you never
it got.
tried to get someone on a higher interest rate than like.
No, I've given people higher interest rates than they deserve. That's how you made money. But it was not. I never flipped a no doc. I mean, the no doc people are no doc people.
Okay,
it wasn't
yeah.
like a guy. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It wasn't even a guy who showed up with W-2s. He's like, do you think I qualify? It was a guy where I'd call up and go, your Escalade payment is more than you bring in on the books for the month.
Yeah.
Like your Escalade payment is more than you show in income. And he'd go, so what? And I go, so nothing. Get down here. I got $500,000 for you. You nut. That was, but I mean, again, it was great times, and it'll happen again, and it should. Because at the end of the day, it's nobody's fault, and Dana's laughing over there. Let me tell you right now, it's nobody's fault. These were greedy cops, teachers, greedy Main Street pigs that duped great institutions like the Mortgage Warehouse or the Funding Spot.
Do you have any regrets? Do you have any like particular things that like individual cases that stand out? Where, like, maybe got a little sketchier than you were comfortable with?
No. Well, one case, this guy came to me and goes, listen, my dad's about to drop dead. I want to take all the money out of his house because I'll never get approved to buy the house. I want to take all this money, and I'm going to go to Miami and open a car wash. And I was all coked out of my skull. I said, that sounds great, Epifanio. Epifanio. And he, during the closing, the old guy didn't know where he was. He had Alzheimer's. So the closing attorney, like the guy, his son kept grabbing his hand and signing. Was signing the paper for him. And they were like, the closing attorney goes to me, he goes, listen, I want to go. He goes, can you come outside? I said, what? He goes, can you come outside? And the guy kept grabbing his hand. Daddy, no sign here. And the guy every now and then would look up from the paper, go like this, and go, oh. And the closing attorney called me outside and goes, listen, I want to go on the record right now and tell you, I'm very uncomfortable with this. And he goes, this is going to come back to bite us in the ass. And I said, it may and it may not. Get your ass back in that house. So we go back in, and the old guy, and then all you heard is this. The old guy is like, oh. He's just going like this. And his son goes, keep signing, Daddy. It's almost over. And I mean, this was a family first. That's what they were. They were a goddamn family.
In that moment,
They were a family. That's a father and a son, and that's a beautiful moment. That's a beautiful moment.
I'm not asking why did you go through.
We're getting arrested right after this podcast. But we're going to walk in the street, and this NYPD is just firing your weapons into both of us. There'd be no outcry.
I'm not asking why you went through with it. In that moment, did you feel anything about
I said, this guy's going to die, and his son's going to take the fucking money. But if that didn't happen, it was going to happen with somebody else who's going to earn a commission off this deal.
Okay.
What do you think? The dad was like some honest guy who gave a shit. The father, the reality of the situation was the father was an older man. He wanted to give his son as much money as he could.
We're assuming.
That's what was explained to me. That's what Epiphanics. But there was some other thing. There was a family. Here's one that I felt bad about. We're in the Bronx. We're a block away from Montefiore Medical Center with an old white couple named the Hooks. The Hooks have a fly strip in the middle of their... A fly strip is a long piece of tape, which is dead flies. There's 18 cats in the house. They're emaciated. They come there to die. The woman says, they're not even ours. Many of them come here to die.
Inside the house.
Inside the house. Her husband is a Vietnam veteran. He's lit himself on fire. She goes, we have a problem. There's been a fire in the kitchen. He lit himself on fire the other night. I said, ma'am, that is so common. Not a big deal. Don't worry about it. We're not here to judge you. They were drinking whiskey at 11 a.m., and I joined them. And we had a tough negotiation. They said, we'll do anything. We'll sign anything. I said, all right, let's make it happen. So I was a master salesperson. And then they told me this. They go, they offered to buy this house. Montefiore offered to buy this house for $1 million, but we're holding out. And I went, hey, we're all about to sign these favors. And they go, Montefiore said we're going to give us $1 million, but we think we're going to get more. And I went, you think you're going to get what? They offered a fly strip in the kitchen, $1 million. What is the difference? What is the difference between $1 million and $1.8 million to you fucking yokels?
What is it, like a month before the crash happened?
they call me, so we do the deal, because I said to them, I said, maybe you should, this is the time I was like moral. I said, maybe you should take that deal at Montefiore. They go, we're not going to do it. I said, all right. I couldn't even get their deal done. I didn't make $1 because they went in and appraised the house and go, it's unlendable. It's unlendable. There's fire, damage, there's all kinds of problems. So they went to Montefiore and they said, listen, and it was like about a year later, and Montefiore had said, fuck it, we'll give you $250.
Wow.
Wow.
So you actually did the right thing.
I did the right thing.
Well, no,
you
you tried to get the deal done, but...
Well, they wanted the deal. I told them, go with the Montefiore. They said, no. We could get more. I said, I don't know. It's $1 million. At a certain point, you're getting greedy. What's the difference? You're two fucking old drunks. $1 million. You go down to Atlantic City and you're awash in cash for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Go live. Both of them died within 2 years after Montefiore said, the fuck you. It was tough, man. Those were tough times, but, you know... I mean, and then there were people that just really shouldn't have been getting what they got. You know, I've given people $800,000 or $1 million where I knew this wasn't going to work. You know what I mean?
Were they just like drug addicts or were they
well,
scammers?
Some of them said, what's the W-2?
Jesus.
You know what I mean? One of the closing attorneys goes, how much is this loan amount? I said, $775,000. And the guy's an idiot. And the guy's like, Daddy's papers, Dub. Which one's a W-2? What's this? Which one's this? I said, I always have to tell the closing attorney. We had shadier people than me. There was some I was just selling mortgages. But there were some very, very shady people. There was a guy named Howie who was one of the shadiest guys we had. Closing attorneys would hate to work with him. He would meet the closing attorney on the front lawn of the house because the closings would all take place in people's houses. Howie would meet them on the front lawn of the house. He'd go up to the car and go, hey, here's the deal. And they would go, no, there is no deal. And Howie would go, here's the deal. Don't get nuts in there. Don't go over every fee. I'll answer every question. And they go, listen, if they directly address me, I have to answer a question. And Howie would be like, no. So, and Howie would make up things that were factually untrue and tell them. Like somebody said, what's an APR? An APR is an annualized percentage rate.
Right.
Meaning the rate that you pay after all is said and done when the cost of finance is included. You know? Or, not just the base rate, the contract rate, but the APR. We're loading all these fees on. What's that going to do to the rate, over the life of the thing? Howie, they said, and this is where a closing attorney went crazy on him. Somebody goes to Howie. They go, what is the APR? What does this mean? And Howie goes, oh, the APR. Oh, well, that's the average person rate. And you see your rate's lower than the average person rate. You're better than the average person. And the guy went, oh, that makes sense. And then the closing attorney goes, I'm leaving, and got up and left and refused to close the deal.
Wow.
Refused to close
Did that deal get done?
It got done. They just sent some other schmuck out there. Some other idiot who did it. But, I mean, this was the mortgage crisis. There was a guy that walked into the firm I worked in who delivered sandwiches from Sue John's Deli. Mm-hmm. And we hired him. We said, you speak Spanish? Yeah, sell mortgages. And we just gave him a speech, a script, and he'd just read, hello, would you like a financiar un banco?
Wait, you hired the guy from the deli?
We hired the guy who delivered food, and we said, come on and do mortgages. Be a financial advisor.
Did someone call in sick that day?
He was a 17-year-old Spanish kid who we liked. He used to deliver our sandwiches, and we said, you speak Spanish. Come on in and whack the people over the head.
Okay, I got you.
Everybody, the Haitian guy that worked with us used to whack the Haitians over the head. Everybody whacked their own people over the head.
Diversified.
We were diversified. There's something really egalitarian about a sales office, you know? But, I mean, there was really some crazy times. The guy who owned the company was a 24-year-old who used to sell ecstasy, and his attorney said, I can't get you out of drugs anymore. With the Rockefeller laws, you're going to jail. If you get caught again, you need to do something else. And so he started a mortgage bank. He told that story at the monthly meeting in front of 200 people, and people clapped. He goes, and then I started this firm. Insane.
Did you have a niche? Who were you beating over the head?
Just anyone.
All right.
Fat pigs. I did a lot of Long Island business. I did some Brooklyn business. I did a lot of Long Island.
So if you were there longer, would you have carved that little segment of people that you like?
I mean, I didn't do that well. I didn't make a ton of money. There were guys making $100,000 a month.
Okay.
I was just drugged out of my head trying to figure out anything.
Right.
But I wasn't a great. And I also got in late. I got in kind of late. I was in through 2000. I started in 2006, really 2005, 2006. But 2009 and 10 were the years I was still in it, and this was post-crash.
Sure.
You were just doing government deals, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, like government-insured loans. All the fun had gone. The drugs were gone. It was a long hangover.
Right.
You know? That was a hangover, 2009. It was a real rough stuff.
But everything you explained, none of that is criminal at all. It's just
Wow.
Well,
I mean,
I
come
wouldn't go so far as to say that. Yeah.
But what's
none
criminal
of, none
about
of
that?
it was criminal. I didn't really do the criminal shit. The criminal shit was really, and it was just 'cause I'm a pussy. It's not because of morality. The criminal shit really was, well, we did a little criminal stuff. The lying. The people
if you
that would go,
fudge
my cousin owns a car dealership on Northern Boulevard who's going to say that I've worked there for the last 6 years and made
Yeah.
$80,000 a year.
And
Right.
they look the other way and go, let's approve them for the mortgage.
But by the
yeah.
way, that's kind of soft fraud because the bank it wasn't fake documents. It was literally they were accepting honor system.
Let me ask you this
Which
question.
is crazy.
How did this orgy get started is my first question. My second question is, when did you know it was over? And my third question is, can you compare it to stand-up comedy? 3 questions.
When the orgy got started after, it started two places. It started with the Community Reinvestment Act under the Clinton administration. A lot of things that end up being very bad start with good, positive things. And like, basically people were saying you got to start expanding.
Like communism.
Right. You
Yeah.
got to start expanding lending in minority communities and low-income communities. You got to expand opportunities to credit. People need to be able to finance things, get into the American system. They don't have that opportunity. They're denied by banks all the time. We need to stop that. So Community Reinvestment Act planted the seeds in the heads of Wall Street people and financial industry executives that they needed to come up with products that allowed them to lend to traditionally riskier borrowers that might have had less income, less credit, less whatever. And so what then happened was after 9/11, the economy was in a recession, and Alan Greenspan, they cut rates, Fed cut rates, and then the party started where it was like. Now it was like, hey, get in.
Let's kickstart the economy by selling some loans.
Yeah, we got to get some houses going on. And then it was a real estate boom, a construction boom. All of these exotic financial products that allowed you to pay 1 or 2%, like a credit card.
So that's on the way
minimum
again.
payment.
That's on the way.
Sure, some version of that will be on the way.
Yeah.
Those financial products were then bundled up and sold to investment funds. And then people, and we're so interconnected, what really fucked everything was like people's pensions were tied into these funds that were wrapped up with very toxic assets, which was the term, which was bad mortgages. Mortgages given to people that had no ability to repay them. And that's the mortgage-backed security, which was invented by a guy named Lou Ranieri, who's profiled in The Big Short. That was when they decided that mortgages should be traded and sold between banks and investment institutions like stocks. Your bank used to hold your mortgage. So early on, you would go to a mortgage bank and you would have the bank. I mean, so many scenes in old movies are a guy arguing with the banker. It's been rough this month. It's the banker that gave him the mortgage. He knew the guy. It was a very localized thing. I know him. I know his farm. I've been to his farm. I know what he brings in. And then everything got very global where like I would give you a mortgage and sell it to Hyenas, and then Hyenas would sell it to Pimp, and then Pimp would sell it to
That's
Schultz.
when
and
like
then
Chase would sell your mortgage to Fannie Mae or
Correct.
something. Yeah.
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are GSEs, are government-sponsored entities, meaning they're not technically government-controlled, but they're government-sponsored, meaning the government. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are essentially why we have, some stability in the mortgage market, meaning that they back the loans. They, not explicitly, but they ensure that these loans are good, and they protect banks who issue these loans. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are, one of the reasons we have a 30-year mortgage. You have a stability over 30 years as a financial instrument that's kind of unheard of, and it's not common everywhere in the world. It's very uncommon. I mean, a lot of places there's only 10-year notes. A 30-year fixed note is a financial
They
product.
want you working your
This
whole
is
life
why,
to
like
pay
the
it back.
libertarians and stuff, when they start talking about like, oh, the government's always been involved in everything.
Yeah.
The government's allowed all of this to happen. So this idea that like you can uncouple from the government is just not realistic. It might have been. I'll give them this. It might have been better to not have the government do all of these things. Sure, academically, great, but the reality is, even just looking at the mortgage market, the reason, and the real great book, if anyone has an interest in this, is written by Bethany McLean, and it's called All the Devils Are Here. And it's about it's from a great Shakespeare play, All the Devils Are Here. Bethany McLean also wrote one of the most influential articles. She's a reporter for Fortune, and she wrote one of the most influential articles that's ever been written in finance, and it was called How Does Enron Make Its Money? And it was the first article that kind of pierced the facade of the Enron Corporation.
So that book, All the Devils Are Here, is about what
it's
you're
about
saying.
the mortgage crisis.
Depends on who you blame more.
Here's what it is.
Was it more predatory lending?
It's like Joan Rivers said on that episode of Louie, know when you're lucky.
Yeah.
Know when you're lucky. There's this idea of and our economy is built on this model of perpetual growth.
Right.
Everything's got to be bigger and bigger and bigger. The house has got to be
America,
bigger.
yeah.
The pool's got to be deeper. The yard has got to be bigger. The den has got to be bigger.
You got to know when to hand. You got to know when to. You got to know when to cash in.
It's the disease of more.
Right.
The disease of more.
Right.
And it was those Wall Street guys weren't poor before they started slinging these things. They weren't poor. But they got, in the last 10 to 15, 20 years, people in that line of work have gotten astronomically wealthy.
Sure.
A level of wealthy that most people don't understand. I'm talking about many of them are earning $1 billion in a calendar year, or over $100 million in a calendar year.
Right.
Not 30 million, not $1 million a month, not $2 million a month, not $5 million a month. We're talking in cases $20, $30 million a month. The guys at the top of those institutions, they've become so fucking dislocated from this. There is a real fucking problem with that type of money.
So on the deepest level, it was the disease of more on the side of those who were getting the loans and on the side of people who were giving the loans.
Correct.
Right.
It's
Gotcha.
all across the board.
It's the American dreams.
And I knew it was over when I was in a diner. In the same diner, I said to the waiter, I said, hey, my order at the diner is always mozzarella sticks. Also, I'd like a grilled cheese with turkey because I'm turning over new leaf.
And then I asked the waitress, where's the closest Carvel?
Yeah. Grilled cheese with turkey and tomato. I'm turning over a new leaf. I didn't say bacon. I said turkey. Now, let me ask you a question. If bacon goes in a sandwich with the turkey, coleslaw, French fries, lightly cooked. But don't burn them. Don't give me the excuse that people aren't paying attention in there. So, so I said to the waiter, he goes, what do you guys do? I said, I do mortgages. He goes, what a coincidence. I do mortgages. And then the guy that was handing me my mozzarella sticks took out a card from his top pocket and put it on the diner table. And that's kind of the way I felt, about a year and a half ago in comedy when everyone you knew was a comedian.
Yeah.
The problem is when everybody, it's the secret's out. It's like, you ever go to a good restaurant?
So that's when you knew it was over, when everyone was getting in.
Yeah, well, you ever
when
go
it
to
got
Let me use
oversaturated.
a food example, which I don't talk about food a lot. You go to a good restaurant, it's great. Then you cruise by it on a Saturday night and it's jammed. And you go, I hope in a year from now we don't end up going back and going, this place sucks. But a lot of times that happens. A lot of times when it's the secret place and they're on the come up, they're on the rise, everything's great. But when it explodes and everybody's in and everybody's got their hand in the trough, then all of a sudden people start making stupid decisions. They start making bad decisions. And the people start making decisions that are nowhere near the actual decisions. Which is why communism, all these isms don't work, is because people are making decisions from 30,000 feet about disciplines they have no fucking idea about how they actually work. Right?
Right.
So when the government just goes, hey, find a way to lend to low-income people, and Wall Street goes, we got it, the government has no idea what's about to happen.
Right.
And then the ones that kind of have an inkling just keep their mouth shut because things are good. Bush goes, 70% of Americans own homes. Trump has done nothing but extend what Obama did, which is extend what Bush did, which is essentially just tell people to put it all on a credit card. That's just the whole thing. The economy is just on the card. We'll think about it later. I mean, we owe, what is it, 20 trillion?
At
China?
this point, it's you don't.
It's
the
fake
number,
now.
You can't even say the number anymore.
Yeah.
It's not an
They got to
existable
think
number.
of a new word in the English language to describe the amount.
The economy is just on the card. It's on layaway. It's like,
how does that
interest rates are
How
going to
does
have.
that? What happens when that culminates? Where does that end? As all things end, What happens? How do we reconcile
I mean,
that?
inflation is where it ultimately leads to the devaluing of the dollar not being the world's reserve currency, our debt rating getting trashed to we're not a good debtor anymore.
So that means we're
Losing
over as an empire.
Yeah, AAA bond rating and all that. Yeah, that's where it leads. And then it just leads to...
Because what you're talking
Yeah.
about there is the actual rotting of the infrastructure of the empire.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
That's inevitable.
Our inability to service our debt, our inability to, basically print the kind of money that we've been printing to keep everybody off the streets, which hasn't worked.
This is when you become a bad earner in the mafia and you get whacked.
You can become a bad earner. Yeah,
we're
you become a bad earner
right now. We're a bad earner. We got a lot of
It's
debts.
when somebody in the mafia movie starts looking at a picture of you from the good times with a sadness in their
Yes.
face.
Yeah.
They take a picture, they look at you when you guys all went to like Aruba and you went, that was fun.
He used to earn.
That's
he
where
used to be
that's
good.
where we're getting to.
He's got a lot of debts now. We don't know how to really get him out
But
of this.
I think business is coming. It could be weed. It could be prostitution. I think you got to legalize weed, legalize prostitution. Day one of Biden or Trump's new administration. Whores are in, weed is in. We
Yeah.
do not have a choice.
Jumpstart the economy, baby.
We don't have a choice.